to another episode of Curious. I'm your host, Sharon Latimer Mosley. On today's show, we discuss the short film Man of the House, a film of love, loss, and survival by actor, producer, writer, and director John Palomino.
Wake up, boy. I know you heard me knocking.
I thought it was Mom asking me to take out the garbage or vacuum the floor or something.
Wait until I tell her.
No, don't tell her. Or else I'll tell her that you caused Sean with the well. Again.
Okay, you got a deal. But if I find out you told her, I'm gonna give you a knuckle sandwich.
I won't.
Hey, Nakia, you guys just missed everyone. Wait, where are you coming from?
My mother and I took him to the firefighter parade in Mamaroneck.
Oh my gosh, you have no idea what happened.
Welcome, John. Could you introduce who you have with you today?
Yes, I have my cousin and producer, Tracy Wilder, my best friend, Jesse Brandon, and my other best friend, Richard Sanchez.
So, this film was a family affair. Can you tell me how that happened?
I mean, the subject, I think, alone, because it's about suicide and depression, it was important for me to, reach out to my family to get their side of the story as well. And, I just wanted to include them in this whole process, So I even reached out to my cousin Tracy when I started writing the film. It was just important for me to include them because they experienced my father's suicide, just like I did.
So Tracy, what was your contribution to the film?
Basically, as producer, and I did a little bit of everything in terms of, I also played the grandma, who is Brenda Flowers, in the movie. I helped review the script. We shot the film in a few days and all of the dealings.
Oh wait, this was done in a few days? How many days
Yes.
did you shoot this?
It was a 3-day shoot, and the suicide.
3 days?
Yeah.
Wow.
And the suicide scene, we had to reschedule the suicide scene because I wasn't in a mental space
I
to
understand.
shoot a suicide scene. But it was 3 days and a pickup day. Yeah.
And the film is about 18 and a half minutes. And all of the dealings of production in front of the camera, behind the camera, and after the editing process was completed, then it's okay, where do we show this film? And then John was fortunate enough to get it looked at through several film festivals. We had a couple of events, and big one was in California.
Where?
In Hollywood, it was at Grauman's Chinese
Wow.
Theater. Yes.
Wow. How did you do that? I want to talk a little bit about the production before we get into the meat of the story itself. So, how did you get to California, Hollywood?
Well, let me just start by saying this is actually my first film. First time writing,
my
first
goodness.
time producing, directing. It was a challenge, and I started. I have a background in acting. Excuse me, and so taking on this task, I wasn't really too sure what to expect or who to work with, and so that was very difficult. But I was able to have some family involved and then work with some other friends who have also experienced the loss to suicide. My DP, Colin, he lost his ex-girlfriend and a friend to suicide.
Wow.
And there was Bryn Berg, who plays the doctor in the film. She lost her father to suicide as well. So it was a tight, close, very close-knit crew and cast. And so, but again, this was all new to me. So, with the experience that I had, I went and reached out to some friends and found out what film festivals they submitted to, and then did some research myself, and came across the Indie Night Film Festival, which is at the world famous TCL Chinese Theater on Hollywood Boulevard, and we showed the film there, and it was a beautiful reception, and because suicide is still very taboo in most households.
Depression
I think,
is taboo.
and depression as well, yeah. So I think everyone's reception at first was like, wow, like this is something you're okay with talking about, but I've realized this past year, because we've been all around the country, LA. I live in Atlanta right now. I've had events in Atlanta, down in Miami.
LA twice.
LA twice, yeah. Miami twice as well. New York a couple times, but Connecticut, yeah.
Have your other actors experienced any family members who have turned to suicide, or?
No, not me, not personally. This is my first time actually, dealing with suicide or mental health. Firsthand. John's father was the only person I knew that.
So you knew John's dad too?
I mean, no, I didn't know him when I was a young.
Yeah.
I just knew as a young kid. I never met him. But doing this film made me feel some kind of, made me feel like I knew him or knew exactly what he was about.
I kind of felt that too.
Okay.
And you? Well, first, did you introduce
I'm sorry. First and foremost, my name is Jesse Brandon.
I introduced y'all.
My name is Richard Sanchez.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, Richard, what was your experience with the film? Did you have any family members who've ever dealt with this subject at all?
I do not have any family members that have dealt with suicide. As far as other mental health issues, yes. Clinically diagnosed, no, but they do. I come from a family that has their own ups and downs with their own personal stuff like that. It's just the way it is. And when I was working with John, we've both known John since yay high. We're talking about a decade,
Elementary.
2 decades actually of friendship together. And, growing up, we always knew, John's father had dealt with that and that situation had happened. So to come 20 years later, more than 20 years, I'm not going to put our ages out there, but more than 20 years later, we talk to actually be able to be in a space that we can actually put this out there and help other people who may not be able to have a voice or be able to just see it and see how someone else copes with it is the involvement that we have with it.
So as actors, let me put that out there, and playing people who experienced the suicide, how did you feel? What was the emotion? Or where did you have to go to portray people who dealt with someone who had suicide?
I could tell you firsthand, as a writer and a producer, I was so prepared and excited and ready. But as an actor, because I played my father in the film, I thought I was ready. I thought because I was at a point now where I talk about it in front of people, to strangers, whoever, and now I'm at this point where I wrote about it. I thought, like, you know what, this is something that I can do. I can act in this, but it wasn't. That wasn't the case at all.
So how did you? Trust me, I understand that. So, how did you get through the emotion? How did you get past the emotion? How did you not let the emotion stop you from portraying your father, even writing about it?
Right. I just saw the potential with the project, and I knew that it could help somebody. Suicide is, on average, 121 suicides happen a day. So someone needs to see this, and I know, during the time I was going through some pain, but I saw what the film can do and how it could help somebody, and it could potentially save someone's life if they saw this film. And that's what kept me motivated and just excited about completing it.
But didn't you have instances where you were like, I can't do this?
Oh yeah, I mean,
So
they could tell you.
Yeah.
We had
like,
some tight moments.
Crying, like
Absolutely.
bawling.
So why don't you tell me,
Okay.
Tracy?
Oh.
We took some breaks.
One or two
Oh,
of
yeah,
those
yeah.
instances.
That's where I'm
Yeah.
thinking of one particular instance when we were in the living room
Yep.
doing that scene, and I've known him since he was a baby, and you know body language, and I'm a mom, I'm a grandma, and so I'm like, well, stop, we gotta stop, and we had to just literally take a break. Him and I went for a walk, talked and talked and cried and talked, and then got it together, prayed, didn't we?
Yeah.
And then we came back to play.
Yeah.
And I said, you got this. I said, we're all here with you. And it's a very scary thing, not scary thing, but it just makes my heart flutter, and I'm not gonna lie. Every time we do something, I'm focusing this way, but I'm like this, because I'm just so conscious that I don't want him to go to too far of a dark space. So sometimes somebody will crack a funny, a whole bunch of funny. Anything for some kind of distraction, because we've had some fun times when we went to LA and Miami.
Definitely.
And just different things, but just the point of letting him know that he's not by himself. And we're all here. So it's as if we're holding his hand, virtually holding his hand. We got you, man. We're right here.
You know, it's interesting she brings that up because, you know, as a kid, that's what everyone thought. You know, everyone always had their eye on me because I could, or they thought I could potentially do the same thing my father did. And I appreciate them, you know, being concerned, but, you know, seeing what my mom had to go through and really just having the support from family, I didn't have to even think about that. You know, the love and support was there from my family, from my grandfather to my uncles.
Even though they're there, sometimes the pain is still there. This, like, you know, people love you, but they can't remove the pain. So,
Right.
how did you move through that, do you think?
Conversations with family members. You know, I went to a therapist, you know, after my father passed away. I went to a therapist for like the first 5 years, from like 6 to about 10, I went to see a therapist. And you know, at the time, I didn't realize how much it was helping me. You know, I didn't want to sit at a table because I felt fine. I was, you know, I maybe had a bad day where, you know, I saw my mom cry, or I had those thoughts of my father, and like maybe, and was just thinking, well, you know, why isn't he here, and why isn't he coming home? And why did that happen to him? So I had questions for myself, but I saw the therapist and really the love and support from family, and just conversations with family really helped me get through it. And then playing sports and then meeting friends, and you know, it made it a lot better.
So I'm going to ask a group question. Has this film changed the way that you look at depression at all?
Definitely.
As men? I'm going to start with the men.
All right. Just, again, this is my best friend, hands down, between the both of them, 20 plus years. So it's like, when you're growing up and, you know, you're going through years and years and years and years of, he never really was someone who was very vocal about it. So like,
I think that's most men. Wouldn't you agree?
yeah, but at a young age for that to happen, you know, that could kind of cause things to like stir down a wrong path or something like that. Or it never really showed. It never, those things never surfaced with John. You know what I mean? And now that we've done the film, I feel like that's kind of like putting that end of the therapy session in a sense, or like even just starting the new chapter in dealing with it. So when we got involved with his project, it's like, okay, cool. Now we're working in a whole new realm of being able to help people. You know what I mean? And offering this new form of therapy that is obviously beneficial to those that see the film and all that. So it's like, okay, cool. Because from my walks of life, it's kind of like, oh, they're either, you know, they're just going through something. You don't really bat two eyes at it. I'm, you know, telling it honestly. It's like, oh, you know, you might be there for a friend, like, yo, you're going through some stuff. Okay, we got you, you know, it's going to be all right. But that's kind of like,
Then how do you get him help?
not to say, how do you get them help? Yeah, not to say it like in a bad way, like you can only be there for someone so much before you have to deal with your own stuff. And it's like, all right, cool, let's, you know, John has opened it up to create new avenues and ways to actually help on a broader scale. And those that want to take advantage of this outlook on a different on different things that deal with mental health, now they can actually have access to channel these avenues to seek the therapy, that personal therapy that they need. And I think it starts with the film that he made, and him having us a part of it is cool. I was like, yo, man, we got you, bro. Like, ain't nothing to ask about, you know what I mean?
Jesse, how's it changed your view?
Me personally, I had no idea, you know, anything about, you know, suicide. I knew that my friend, you know, his father passed away from suicide, but it was something we never talked about. So it was, you know, it was just really touchy. So it was something you knew, but you was like, okay, we're not gonna talk about it. You know, we're just gonna, you know, overlook it. But then when he, you know, he came was about 6 or 7 years ago. It was about 6, 7 years ago. He came to me and said, listen, I'm gonna do this film about my father, and I want you to be in it. So I'm like, all right, yeah, I'll be an extra, you know. I'm not really, you know, it wasn't grasping yet until we actually, you know, hit the set. And then we were on set, and then he's like, no, you have to really act like I'm dead, like act like I'm dead. You like, and I'm like, all right. All right, and I have to really think about that and tap into, you know, and then you start, all right, this is really serious. Like, you know, I have to really act like my friend is dead. Now I gotta think about what that actual character thought at, you know, that actual time, you know, so I'm living in his shoes, you know, so it was weird. It was weird. And then, you know, actually knowing, you know, like bits of the pieces of the story that you don't know, you never asked questions about. Now you're in a movie. So now, you know.
You have some of those answers?
Yeah, it's like the answers are all just, you know, just coming out fluently. And it's like, sometimes it's a lot. It's too much to handle. But at the end, you start to see like this really has a big effect on people.
Yes.
You know, and
yeah.
I didn't really notice that until we went to LA, and it showed in the Chinese theater, and the round of applause we got, it was amazing. And
you're speaking for people who can't speak for
like
themselves.
people came up like crying after, you know, and it made relationships that we still have to this day.
That's so nice. Now I think we're missing one big thing. I don't know much about your father. I just know about the suicide.
Right.
You know, I don't have a picture of who he was. What brought him to that place?
Oh, what brought him to that place?
Do you know?
I know a few things. I know what my mom and some family members told me, but you know, it's still a secret to them. You know, I'm actually the only one in my family that's vocal about my father's suicide. You know, his siblings, my mom, my sister, nobody talks about it. I'm the only one that, you know, is vocal about it. So I got some answers. You know, he was just in a really deep depression, and there was just no way to come out of it. And
Depression's tough.
Yeah.
Been there, done that.
Yeah. Oh. So. I mean, yeah, well, you know,
Yeah.
But yeah, he was in a really deep depression, and there was just no way of him coming out of it. And he thought death would be the resolution to answer all his problems. And, you know, he left my mom a suicide note. And
Oh, he did?
He did, yep.
I saw in one of the scenes, I saw that he was preparing, but I guess maybe people didn't realize. You know, I went through the steps of how to be aware that somebody's going to commit suicide. And I see in one of the scenes, he did exactly that. But you wouldn't have known, you were a kid.
Yeah, so I think you could be talking about the part where he said, I want to kill myself.
No.
No?
No.
No?
With the
Okay.
necklace. When
Yes.
he gives
Oh, when he gives away the
Giving
necklace.
away things.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Sacred.
that I actually added that part to the film. My mom actually gave me his chain. So that was something I just added to the film to make the film complete and have it, you know. But like, yeah, my mom gave me his chain. My mom gave me his chain and the suicide letter the same day. And
How did you feel about that?
oh man, I cried because this was somebody I knew, and I thought I knew, and to see some of the things he said, I didn't think of him like that. I didn't imagine my pops being this bad guy, you know. he was just in a really deep state of depression, and he had some anger problems, but that was because of the depression, and there was just no coming back from it. So when I read the suicide letter for the first time, and I got so emotional, it was like me reading a letter about somebody that I didn't know, because half of the things he said in it was like, no, this is not you. You are not a bad father.
Well,
you're not a bad husband.
If you watch the film, it's like, how would you know?
Right.
You know, he was probably going through the motions so nobody would know.
Right.
And that's what it looked like to me in the film.
And this happened in the 90s, so, you know, I think the good thing about, social media now is that you can see and hear a lot of these stories now. Suicide, depression, and you can find a therapist, you can Google a therapist so easy. Back in the early 90s, if you didn't know somebody that knew a doctor, and if most of your friends and your family aren't talking about something to a therapist, you're going to just bottle it in.
Especially African Americans, we don't talk about that stuff.
Right. And, you know, when he did say he wanted to kill himself the first time, nobody looked at that as serious as he was saying it. Nobody thought he was that serious.
Well, maybe they didn't know what to do.
Because it's like, no, you're okay. Like, what do you mean? You'll get over it. You're a man. You'll get, this
maybe
is
they didn't
just
know
a hiccup.
what to do. Because what do you do if somebody's reaching out and they're saying they want to kill themselves? What do you do?
Well, the first thing you should do from experience is just sit there and talk to the person. Find out what's wrong with the person. You know, don't let it go in one ear and out the other, or just cut them off. You know, if somebody says that, the first thing you should do is just sit down and listen. Find out what's wrong with the person. Talk to them, and then search for help. Find a therapist. There's so many free local services in Westchester, all around the U.S. Free services everywhere.
Put some of those up at the end of the show.
Definitely, yeah.
Absolutely.
So,
Definitely.
but yes, it's so important just to listen, and just listen. Even if you don't know what to say, just listen.
How's your mom?
My mom is good.
I would love to talk to her too.
Listen.
Tell her how she survived. I mean, I can't even imagine.
She's a strong woman, I'll tell you that.
I can't imagine.
I mean, I'm here today because of my mom. And I mean, it was hard for her. My mom was 28 when this happened.
Oh, God.
I was 6 years old. My sister was eight months or 10 months.
Oh, my God.
Yes.
I didn't realize that.
Yeah, I have a sister, a younger sister.
And may I say, I love that young actor.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
He was amazing.
Yeah.
He's amazing. Is he still acting?
Yes, he is. That's my little cousin. He's acting still.
He was amazing.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
Very good gentleman, too.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
They're all right. Yeah.
Oh, my gosh. Who was responsible for the cinematography?
My friend Colin. Colin has been working in the industry for a while. Kind of crazy story. I met Colin through my friend Rich, and Rich actually met Colin through my friend Jimmy. So it's like a crazy kind of story. Yeah.
That is crazy. We were very much admiring the cinematography here. It's
he was supposed to be here.
Beautifully shot.
Yeah, he's working right now. He's on set right now working, so he couldn't make it. Yeah.
Shout out to Colin.
Yeah,
good dude.
Big shout out to Colin. Yeah.
It was really.
Yeah, he made this all possible, and it was special because, he shared the similar experience where his ex-girlfriend and his friend from high school, died by suicide. So it was important for him to be a part of this project. Like, it was his job. It was meant to happen.
Do all of you feel that doing work like this is healing?
Oh yeah,
Of course,
Definitely.
absolutely.
Definitely.
And do you feel that was a closed-ended question? I'm sorry, what were you supposed to say? But how moving forward, if I can go to each one before we have to wrap up, each person and ask them, what are your next steps after this movie?
So, I mean, I'm a mental health advocate. I've worked with NAMI, the National Alliance on Mental Illness. I've worked with the Mental Health Association. I've even volunteered for the suicide prevention, American Suicide Prevention in Atlanta. I've done a few things.
But what are you going to do moving forward?
Right. So I didn't realize how much work it takes to really push this project into,
Oh.
because there's people out there that are still suffering today. But what I am gonna continue to do is, you know, share my story. You know, we've had some screenings in some schools. I'm working on having some more screenings in some schools, high schools, colleges, even elementary schools, just to keep this discussion going. And you know, I'm always working with like therapists. I'm always, you know, hosting my own events. I actually have an event in Atlanta next Saturday, a mental health event where I'm going to screen my film, and we're going to have a panel discussion with therapists that are local to Atlanta.
That's great.
So yeah, no, this is just the beginning. This
Tracy?
is really just the beginning.
I need to cut you off.
Yeah.
Love.
This summer, we created another project,
Oh,
and that will be coming out soon. That is called Suicide Homicide. And it is another look on a similar story. And hopefully everyone will have interest to want to see that as well.
Okay.
We also created, I'll say, a prequel, or I call a side story to Man of the House called Six Kings. We worked on that over the summer too. So we've been busy working on different projects, and then of
busy.
course we did that in Atlanta, and
In
then
Atlanta?
right, and then the Suicide Homicide, we did that in New Rochelle.
Oh.
And so this was all the end of the summer, the fall.
so it's all local. Now I have 2 minutes left. So Jesse, if you could tell me what next steps you're gonna do, whether it's more acting or
definitely
filmmaking.
more acting. Definitely more acting, and on the producing side, you know, I want to do more behind the camera. And as long my goal is, listen, if we can save one person, then we did our job. You know, if one person is saved. If one person sees this and says, listen, I'm not gonna do it, then I feel like we
did a
did
good
more
job.
than enough.
Okay. And Richard?
Same thing that they said, just continuing to work within the realm of mental health, because it is a big issue in our community directly, and then, you know, obviously the country, the world, and all that, and being advocates for those, being even people in our community, and, you know, the next reach of our community that people could come to and just talk to, because we don't directly affecting friends that probably going through something they don't feel comfortable talking to a stranger or something like that. They come talk to us, and you know, like he said, if we could save somebody, that's our job is done. But continuing to work within the realm of mental health and entertainment, and you know, John acts outside of the mental health realm and everything like that, just creativity.
Now, before we close, we're gonna have a special showing.
Yes.
We're going to have a special showing of Man in the House on LMC-TV. That's January 10th at 10 p.m., channel 75 on Optimum, and Verizon Fios, channel 36. So we're going to have your show. Oh my gosh. Yeah,
That's actually on my birthday. January 10th is my birthday.
I'm so excited. It's good.
It's a blessing in disguise.
I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for everyone who came tonight. I wish we could have talked longer. You're all
This is
welcome to
perfect.
come back.
Thank you.
You're welcome to bring your other show.
Yeah.
Maybe
We appreciate
could
you having us.
air it again.
Thank you
We'll
for
definitely be
really
back.
thank you for giving us a platform to share, you know, the story and the film with you and your community. So thank you.
Thank you
really.
for coming.
Of course.
Being on
Thank
the
you.
show. Come back anytime.
All right.
Thank you and good night.